Morning, 28th of February 2024. Probably the first video for this year. Just going to catch up on what I've changed and where I am. Greenhouse is still the same, but I actually was bothered to strip it out, put bubble wrap around the inside to insulate it, which it certainly has. The other thing it seems to have done is made it quite damp as it rains when I touch it, but at least it's holding the heat in. It's certainly lifting the humidity. I've put benches in down the side, this side and this side, 2-tier, and you can see that's one of the Vitapods, and the tubers are sort of well away. Varieties, not much change from last year really. Mirrors Germander, they're finally getting going. Go up to Twilight. When I'm dying, there's 2 trays there, some cuttings to take on those. I have gone through these and took cuttings, I think it's Friday last week, so about 4 days ago, and there's more to take today. This one that just referencing as Dark Diane, there's a story to that. And then we've got Aggie White, Bryn and Louis, and the Louis are doing the usual of coming thick. I'm getting a little bit of this black tipping on some of the leafier varieties, which I think is just the humidity in here. Then Kiwi, not 100% that I'm growing it or growing it in numbers, but I've got some stock there. Thank you to Frankie. Blight and Softer Gleam, which has been a real nightmare, apart from it's just starting to decide to wake up. I haven't taken the cutting yet off of these. I even went up the allotment and dug up 2 tubers that would have been 2 weeks ago today, and it was the last 2 tubers that I had left in the ground by the time I distributed it around the place. And within 2 weeks, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 or 9 eyes coming from them 2 tubers. Why do we bother lifting them up and drying them and storing them? Just in case, I suppose. Skelmersdale Jane. These are ones I've selected from last year that had decent centres from the stock. I had a bit of indifference, so I've only lifted the ones that I'd marked. Trying, sorry, and I am still trying. Barbary Surprise, nothing as yet, and I think they're pretty much gone, but you never know. They've been on heat since middle of December, and I've got to do some miracles there with Nose Trisha from a couple of pot tubers. I want about 36 plants of that. But if I don't get enough, then I'll just make it up with the Giants. Did it right last year with them. I just wanted to grow a large semi alongside, and this one I'm looking at, which is Sandia Gold, or Water Lily, just to see how that grows in my ground. Going back to the Dark Diane, as they're calling it, the Dark Diane was just, I had 3 plants that came out probably nearer to Primrose in colour. The actual Primrose Diane, where Winholm is slightly lighter. But I just noticed they had a couple of more rows of petals to them. They were larger flowers and just stronger, taller flowering plants. So I marked those plants. I mean, this one made a huge tuber. While they were growing, all the flowers from all the plants came out the same colour. I did have one that had 1 Paola flower on there, so I just pulled it out, and that went on the compost heap because I didn't want to mess about, 1, giving it away to anyone else, or 2, getting lighter flowers coming out. So I've marked them. I've called it Dark Diane, just for me to differentiate from Winholm, and I've numbered the tubers. As you can see, there's a label in there that says number 3, 2 and 1. So I've numbered the 3 tubers. As I've taken cuttings, I think there might be some up here that I've took off. There's a label, Dark D1. So I've labelled each cutting to the tuber in which it's come from, so I can keep track. So I should probably plant stock from all 3 tubers, and if I find that any particular plant reverts back, I shall look at what tuber number it is and pretty much remove all of that stock at the end of the year. I'm growing Winholm as well, so the worst case it's going to do is revert back to Winholm, and I'll have more Winholm. So I'm intending to plant more of this one than that, and if some revert back, I'll have about half and half of the 2 varieties. Whether it's really any different, we'll only have to wait and see, but we shall try. So learning again, by putting the bubble wrap up, it has made the greenhouse more humid. It's certainly made it warmer. I'm on a very, very gravelly ground, as you can see. It's a car park. So it all seems very idyllic when you're in here, but if you come out, it's actually the staff car park of the garden centre. No shortage of compost, and we have a delivery. So it's hardly pretty, but it does the job, and it's got power. So that's where I hide it on a Wednesday this time of year. But yes, trying it in here with the benches that I've never had. These ended up on the floor. I'm using the Vitropod just to root in. I have the first few cuttings, I just used a Stewart's plastic tray and propagator on the heat bench, and that worked pretty well, but you can't fit many in there. I've got 2 of these. Only thing I'm finding is I've allowed more air in now than I was before. I was getting a little bit of this, just see it up there, sort of blackness on the leaves, which I think is just holding too much humidity in there, and that normally is combined with not enough light at the same time. So it's the least lit part here, down there, which doesn't normally matter for cuttings, especially later in the year. It'll probably work out better, but I may well bring those trays up onto the bench at this end, which hasn't got any heating under it, just so there's a little bit more light and I can access them a bit better. These were the first ones that were rooted, and they were taken on the 26th of January, and then these are the next ones. The kiwi flew away, so I've got masses of that, it seems, and then there's some Diane's, Gertler and more kiwi, and the rest aren't far behind. I've just used a normal mix of multi-purpose compost and perlite, but I'm going to try a couple of other things which may help reduce this black. This is just seed and cutting compost, which is still peat based. It's finer and lighter. It's got some vermiculite in it, and I will still add perlite. I use a lot of perlite, so I just have a big bag sitting in there. This is another thing that's come through, very similar to what I used a few years back, and I know others are using it, which is Coir. This one it's been made by Fothergills as a seed compost, and they're known, talking to them, they've added slow release nutrients into it, but they're using the micro nutrient because when they compress these bales, if you put anything larger in there, it compresses the fertiliser, breaks it, which means it disappears very quickly. And there's some seaweed in there. So I'm going to give that a try just to see if the cleanliness of it, it's a very sterile medium, helps in any way. I mean, I'm not really struggling as it is. It's just tweaks and changes, and only experience and eyesight will know and tell you what to do to change, to improve. But it's just because the environment has changed, quite often you just need to tweak what you do a little bit, just to make sure you get the most success from it. So that's where we are, 28th of February. I'm going to take these cuttings off here, just reset up the greenhouse in a different configuration so it's a bit easier, hopefully a bit more successful for me. And and we'll go from there. So I've moved over the Vitapods here, and we'll put the second layer that I've got under the bench on there, and maybe get the next one out and on the bench ready. Trying the peat or a coir block. I've just mixed it with about 50% or 2-to-1 coir to perlite. Just mixed it in this tray. Once I've added the water to it, seems to be quite a nice fine mix. I've filled the trays. I started to use these this year, which are Visiroot, they call them, cell trays. They're a retail product. Invariably I tend to use retail products because this is a garden centre and I can get my hands on them. But I'll only use them if I think they're any good or may add a benefit. And for me, they're a deeper cell, so they're much deeper than the standard. I think they're garden ones I was using before, but most of the standard cell trays that you get. So there's a bit more compost in them. They've got good holes in the bottom. And the other benefit is when they're filled and when they've got plants in, you can actually see when they're rooted, because you can see roots growing down the sides of the cell trays. So I filled they're made from recycled plastic bottles, which is another benefit. So look at me, a recycled plastic bottle tray, coir in the inside. I'm feeling so eco, I could run out the greenhouse and go and hug a tree or two, but no, I'm not eco. I'm just trying to find the best thing for my dahlias, and if it happens to be coir, peat, soil from the garden, whatever, I don't really mind, as long as it's the best for the plants. And I'm just trying to re-establish a comfortable way of operating in the greenhouse that I've changed the environment. So that 10-litre block has managed to fill to, how many is there? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 of these trays. They do fit, they're a 20 cell, and you do fit 2 in a tea tray if you want to put them in tea trays, so they're the same as the 40 cell tray that we'd traditionally use. But it's just quite handy having them in 20s to, you don't have to fill a whole tray up. You can do half a tray or whatever, and it's not using up so much space. So we'll give that a spin. I shall probably give them one little watering in just to make sure, and see how they go. But we shall only find out down the line. The cell trays I've been using this year for the first time, and so these have all rooted in there. That's been fine in my normal compost mix, so I can't see any issues with those in general. It's just trying to get the right medium. Let's get tidied up and start again. That's that job done, and as luck would have it, a cardboard box arrived with the lids for this second Vitapod. So I've just took those cuttings, they're all in the coir, and I've just watered them in again. Never feel that the coir does hold as much moisture as peat does, but there's been a lot going on there, so this should be fine. Need to probably buy another ring, because I thought I had a double ring to go on here, not a single, but that's what happens when you buy it last year. It says 6 trays, so that's 120 cuttings, which surprised me from what there was. Lids on. I tend to leave the vents fully open, especially when it's only one layer high. Set at 20 degrees. We'll see what happens. I might have to order another ring. The lids cost £49, so they're not a cheap thing, but when you get them right and get them working, it takes a lot of pressure off. You don't have to worry about spraying the cuttings every 10 minutes. So I'll move those off now. Got these to pot up, but we all know how that goes. And we'll be back in here probably in a week's time. We'll have another good go at them, by which time there'll be more out of that lot to do take off. need to find a smaller pot for me Rhizopon. It's the Chrysopon green, or Chrysotop green. I'm using it. Seems to always do alright for me. That's it. See you later.